and it's so weird. I think this is probably the biggest thing that I struggle with.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. My husband Gozi and I are expats who have lived in both India and Morocco. I love to travel, and when I can, I love trying new foods too. Gozi and I are back in the US preparing for our next move abroad. Today, we will be talking about some of the things expats do when they move back to their home country.
The first thing we as expats do when we move back home is we try to fit in where we get in. Now, our life changes when we move back home, but know that when you move back home, you are basically plopping yourself into an already moving and existing environment of people that are just living life. You know, things have changed. I have changed. When it comes to specifics like friends and family and different things like that, you really do try to fit in with those groups as well. And hopefully as an expat, as expats, we integrate ourselves smoothly. But from my experience, that hasn't always worked. It has taken a lot of work actually to really massage those friendships, to really get, back into some of those spaces in the same way, or maybe a more evolved, more mature way. Along the lines of fitting in, that could also be regarding your music choices, your music taste, the things you hear on the radio, outings, sporting events, and things like that. You really kind of think, what was my old self doing and how can I just integrate myself back into those same things? But if those things are different, like the music nowadays is a little different, you kind of just, adapt. When we come back home, we definitely make up for food that we have missed out on. I don't know if you can tell, but I have been enjoying my life. And what's funny is you do that in a way that then shows you that you really weren't missing out on a bunch. So let's just say if you weren't eating In-N-Out in a place like India, for example, then you come home and you're like, oh my gosh, I want all the burgers, I want all the things. And after about a couple of weeks, you realize, I don't really like burgers. So the third thing expats do when they come back home, or at least they should do or try to do, is to fall in love with home again. And I know that sounds weird and it probably sounds easier said than done. It's hard to move back and to have to do all the adjustments and also have to still be an adult. And I think if you are a preparer like I am, you find a job or something that you love doing that will be rewarding, that will reward you back. If you come back home to a job that you had previously before moving abroad, or a lifestyle that you had previously before moving abroad, those things may have frustrated you. So coming back, you would be frustrated again. You would be unfulfilled again. And so it's important that as expats, as people moving back home, that we do in fact find things that are a little bit more fulfilling. And again, that could be your job, it could be your hobbies, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be whatever. But if you come back to the old life that you left behind and it's not fulfilling, then it's sad if that's not what you're looking for. So instead of focusing on that, I highly recommend that you put a positive spin on your return home. And those positive aspects can include healthcare, education, a job, family, or what have you. But on the negative side, it could also be your healthcare, your education, or family. A lot of people move away to get away from family, and then coming back and being in the midst of family might not always be a positive thing. So let me put a little wrench in our 5-step process that we're going through in this video. Moving back home during a panorama is a whole nother can of worms. And what's interesting is that although life has seemed to slow down, expat life seems to speed up when you are trying to figure out if you are going to stay or if you're going to move. And it's also very difficult when your life is a little sped up with those decisions and things are closed and you can't actually access everyday services that you need to get things done so that you can make the best move for yourself and your family. So another thing that we as expats do when we are moving back home is we have to mentally prepare for adjustments that are regular for everybody else. Regular everyday tasks, everyday activities like driving, I had to prepare for myself. In India and in Morocco, I did not drive. I walked, taxied, public transported myself everywhere. Being back in Colorado, I have to drive everywhere. It's not one of those cities, in my opinion, where you rely on public transportation unless you live in more of a centralized location. It's just not set up for that. So I found myself stuck in a couple of snowstorms on the highway. And honestly, I didn't mentally prepare myself for that. I mentally prepared myself to drive, but I was not prepared for the snowstorms, the icy conditions, and all of that fun stuff. I obviously made it through because I'm here talking to you, but it's something that you just can't plan for. So we mentally prepare, but also, it's important for us to know that there are things that we will not expect that can happen in our preparation for coming back home. And last but not least, and I'm gonna get a little real, a little honest, moving back home means finding your purpose again. And it's so weird. I think this is probably the biggest thing that I struggle with. In Morocco, I felt like I was kind of coming to that, kind of coming into my own, and I'm still that same person. But then I moved back home, and from back home, I moved to India. And then, it took a while for me to find my groove. It was a really tough, depressing time for a while. And then I finally found it. And then we moved again. And so I, of course, have worked on myself mentally, spiritually, and the physical is now coming. But it's still hard. It's still hard to fall back into a life where you're finding yourself again. And some people do it easier than others, especially if you move back home and your job gives you purpose and fulfillment right off the bat, or you just have a job right off the bat. I think that is a beautiful thing. And so for those that move back and they're in a situation like we mentioned before that reflects maybe what they were used to before moving abroad, it can be a little rough. What's great about life is we keep evolving and we are met with new mercies every day, and so that keeps me going as I find my purpose, as I find what is going to sustain me while I'm living back home and while I'm still trying to figure out what the next step is. And I'm excited for the next step, but the in-between time is always like a thing for me. So let me know in the comment section if you relate as well. And also, please let me know if there are things that you do or have done as an expat that you feel like most people do as well or that are unique to you. I would love to read your comments and chit chat with you all, just get the conversation flowing and all of that good stuff. I'm feeling very chatty. Again, 2 chatty videos in a row. I think that you all are due for a little vloggage out and about in the world, and I will give that to you for the next video.